Do a review in the Sichas and Chelek Chavov. This is the first Sicha for the portion of Terumah. And we're learning this Sicha, Leilu Nishmas, in memory of our dear son, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Wolosow, who was a devoted and successful shliach of the Rebbe and accomplished tremendous amount. And he was taken from us all of a sudden at the young age of 43. And made this learning be another step in the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, and will zoiche to kitzu v'ranenu shoichnei ofor v'hu b'soicha. This is a Rashi Sicha, and the Sicha of Terumah over here, and in this Sicha, the Rebbe explains basically the two levels in having the gifts first presented to the making it holy, yichuli Terumah lishmi, and then the second step was to make it into holiness, to make it into kedusha. The Rebbe comes up with a chiddush explaining the Rashi. The Rebbe first shows how the other perushim are difficult, and then the Rebbe explains this new concept and idea, and everything in Rashi comes out very smooth and perfect. So let's do the Rashi step, the Sicha step by step. Terumah, Aleph. So from Pasuk B'tchilas Parshasenu, the verse that our Parsha begins, the portion it says, "V'osu li migdosh v'shachanti b'soicha." So make for me a mikdosh, and I will dwell amongst you. That's what it says in the Pasuk. Is Rashi maitik the verter v'osuli migdosh? So Rashi quotes from the verse the words v'osuli migdosh, and unis mefarish v'osuli shmi beis kedusha. Make for my name a home of holiness, a beis kedusha, a holy home. So, what exactly is Rashi coming to tell us over here, and what is Rashi explaining over here? So we have the Mefarshim explain that Rashi is explaining 2 points here. First, Rashi is teaching what the meaning of li, that it means lishmi. And then the other thing is, what does it mean? Migdosh means beis kedusha. Learn Mefarshim. So the Mefarshim learn. As Rashi is mefarish do tzvei bazundere verter. That Rashi explains here two separate words, two words. And therefore Rashi is telling us two separate matters. He bundles them up together, but these are two separate Rashi, two separate taichem for two words, and these are two separate aspects. Aleph, number one, what are the two matters? As the Taj from Li, it says Vasu Li, what does it mean? Is Lishmi, for my name. Und Beis, number two, as Mikdash main, Beis Kedusha means a holy home. We could come on Siv Gimel, as the Rebbe will discuss it more in detail, Siv Gimel. First, the Rebbe is going to ask some general questions on this approach. How could we say that Rashi is explaining two separate, and they're both bunched up together in the same Rashi? Rashi should have put two separate commentaries. One Li saying Lishmi, and the second commentary, Migdosh saying Bais Kedusha. So that's number one. So the general. And then later on, the Rebbe says, why does Rashi quote also V'osu? So the Rebbe is a different shot. And then the Rebbe is going to ask specifically about the Rashi's interpretation itself. Why does it say Kedusha, not Beis HaMikdash, etc., as we'll see. So that been verstehen, so we need to understand. Vibald as those eine zwei besondere Inyonim, since these are two separate matters. So why is Rashi include them both in one commentary, in one saying? As Rashi's in the great majority in his commentary of the Torah, usually what does Rashi do? He should have said two headings over here, two quotes from the pasuk. One would be Li, and for that he would explain Li Shmi, and then another quote for the pasuk Migdosh, and say a Beis Kedusha. He wouldn't bunch it up. So that's one thing. How could we Bechal say that these are two separate matters, but Rashi bunched them up? That's not the way Rashi usually does. And number two, why does Rashi bring down Va'asu? Oich is nit muvan, not understood. Pavos is Rashi maitik in the Dibur Hamaschil. Why is Rashi in the quote from the Pasuk also, quote, bring down in his opening, Oich the word Va'asu? Also the word Va'asu. Unochmer, not only Rashi is not explaining the Va'asu, he's explaining the Li and the Migdosh. So why does he also? Not only does Rashi bring it down in his quote from the Pasuk, Unochmer, also in the commentary itself, Rashi repeats it again and says, Va'asu lishmi chulu. He's not explaining the lishmi l'chayre, he's only explaining li lishmi. And here Rashi brings it down from the Pasuk and he starts his commentary by saying, Va'asu lishmi. In the word Va'asu, Rashi gonish mechadish. Rashi does not tell us anything new. He explained the word Va'asu. He's just explaining the li lishmi. So why does Rashi quote Va'asu? Means something else going on here, as the Rebbe will explain. And now the Rebbe is going to take apart the two contexts, the two commentaries, the one, the Li Lishmi, and then in Ois Gimel, the Rebbe will explain the Migdosh Beis Kedusha, each one. So first, Li Lishmi. What does it mean, Li Lishmi? So Rashi says, for the sake of Hashem. And the Rebbe will bring down in the Gemara has another interpretation. And the Rebbe wants to know, why does Rashi not use the Gemara's interpretation, which seemingly would make more sense? Let's look inside. Then was Rashi is mefarish lishmi, darf me verstehen. What Rashi says lishmi, we need to understand. The Gemara is zogt, the Gemara says, as ve'osu li migdosh. What is the meaning osu li migdosh, says the Gemara? Meint mishali. Make the migdosh from mine, from that which is mine. The Gemara learns that the one who make the mikdash, the workers, get paid from hekdesh. Make mishli as nois nimehen luumonim b'schorim. That when they build, those who make the mikdash, you give from mine, meaning from the gifts, the thing that belong to the Mishkan. That's where you pay the workers. As nois luumonim b'schorim. Membat sold the umonim. You pay the workers, the craftspeople, Farzeir Arbet, for their work, Bebedek Habayis, in the funds that are there to support the temple, to support the Bayis. Mishali, that means mine. With Mom and Hekdesh, with the monetary that belongs to Hekdesh. Hekdesh, the Bedek Habayis, the Hekdesh of the funding of the house, is what pays the workers their pay for the crafts that they're doing, for the work that they're doing, for the umonim. That means osuli mishali, from mine, from hekdesh. So that's what the Gemara says. So the Rebbe, and this is not something which is foreign to Rashi, because Rashi already touched like this the word li in another place that it means mishali. Unotam pirushin li mishali. This interpretation of li, that means from my, we find this also in the study when we learn according to Pshat, which means it's not unique to the Gemara. We find it also in Pshat. Rashi is mefarish them pasuk in Parshas Toldos. Rashi explains the pasuk in the portion of Toldos when Rivka was sending Yaakov to go ahead and take the sheep to feed her husband, to feed Yitzchak, to get the brachas. So she tells to Yaakov, "V'kach li mishom shnei gedoye izim." Take li from there 2 kid goats. So Rashi Taich, what does it mean? V'kach li, take me. Kach li mishalihem. She says, take mine, something I own. Shekach kosa, because he had written in the Kasuba Yitzchak that he would give Rivka every day, Shnei Gedoye Yizim. So you still take mine. You're not taking, you're not stealing it. It belongs to me. And I'm telling you, I'm asking you, Yaakov, to take those two Gedoye Yizim. So we see that Mishali, Li can mean Mishali. So according to this, we need an explanation. What is that hechrech imshuta shel mikra? What forces us when we're studying the simple meaning of the text to mishana zayin, to change umafarish zayin do li lishmi? Why should we explain over here? Li means for the sake of Hashem, that they should make for me the sanctuary l'shem Hashem. Why not say like the Gemara says v'osuli, that you pay the workers from li, from the Bedek Habayis? Now, the Rebbe says in the brackets now that the Mefarshim say that li could also mean for my purposes. It could mean uh, for me. And here Rashi says li lishmi, but Rebbe says that doesn't explain why we're not learning like the Gemara li means bishvili. As is done arichas in Mefarshim, there is a lengthy discussion in the commentators. Vazayin and Masbi, they explain Rashi can why Rashi can't translate v'osu li migdosh, that what would be li mean for me, for my purpose. With the pirush haragul become in li as the common interpretation when it says li bishvili litzarki, make for me, for my needs, for me, that basically for me, not lishmi l'shem Hashem, but lishmi, for my use, for Hashem. Okay, but so they explain over there that, but they don't explain why we don't say. So we know we can't say litzorki, but why do we have to say lishmi and not mishali? Aber euch li pirusham, but also according to their pirush leibnit movement, it still remains not understood. Vavos Rashi zokt li lishmi. Why Rashi says li lishmi unemt nit on pirushe shebeparshas told us pirush Gemara, and why does he not except here his commentary that he says in the portion of Toldos, which is the Pirush Gemara, Li Mishali? Over here, the Gemara says Li Mishali, like he said in Parshas Toldos. So Enoch and Ami, they explained there at length why it can't be for my purposes, but why would Rashi have to say Lishmi versus Mishali? The Rebbe is going to try to say now, perhaps this has to do in the beginning of the Sedra, it already says the word li. And over there, v'yichuli, Rashi teaches l'shmi. And here it follows with the same word, v'asuli, so it means the same l'shmi as before. That's the reason why Rashi chooses, perhaps the Rebbe suggested, maybe to say that the li follows the same interpretation as the li in the beginning of the parasha. But the Rebbe says, Adarabbe. On the contrary, since already Mela, the first time it says Li Lishmi, because you had to designate the money, which was weekly, and you had to designate it L'Shem Hashem, make it for Shem of Kedusha, Lishmi. But once the money is already Lishmi, what's the point of saying V'osu Li Migdosh? What else are you going to do? It's already Mammon Hekdesh. So what is the V'osu Li adding? So L'Cheira, here it's Adavke, we should say Li Mishali. Let's look inside. It would seem that we would be able to explain this. On the words in the beginning of the Sedra, so V'yichuli Terumah is Rashi Mefarish. Rashi explains, what does it mean V'yichuli Terumah? Li Lishmi. So over there it means me, for my name. Was dort over there. Over there you can't say Mishali, gift from mine, because we're talking about giving a gift to the Eberster. So was dort was retzich wegen der hafroshe. Over there, when we talk about the separation, was yafrishu li mimemoinom nedava. They're going to separate from their money, so it's not taking Hashem's money. They're going to give to me mimemoinom nedava, a gift, a donation. So over there, on the pshat, you can't say give from mine. It's not from mine. It's given from them. So we understand why v'yichuli terumah has to be li lishmi. Omibal das der li shebetchilas hasedre meint lishmi. Since the li in the beginning of the sedre means for my sake, for Shem Shemayim, for Hashem is mistaber loymar. So therefore, it's logical to say as oich der li or state boisa hemshech, that also the li that it says in that follow the also li mikdash, which says after v'hichali. Not with psukim weiter in the same flow, but with several verses later on. Themselves Peter's lishmi. So over here it has the same word. Lishmi, just like it means the li means over there. Lishmi, because he can't say bishvili over there. So here too, that follows also means lishmi. Aber kadaikis, but the Rebbe says when you look at his adrabah, because already before we said li means lishmi, it doesn't really fit to say that again li lishmi, and we should say li bishvili. Aber kadaitis, when you look in his adrab, apirush darf sein anders. The interpretation needs to be different. It shouldn't be the same as the li, the first one. The kavona lishmi l'shem havaya, when you have the intent to take the Terumah lishmi l'shem havaya, is verbunden mit shinui Rishus, that is tied to changing the domain. The Zach geht riber for Rishus Hedjet, Memoinam, the matter goes out of the domain of the ordinary, of the persons who gives the donation. Rishus Hegdish Li, it goes over to the possession, to the place, the domain of Hegdish Li. So it's v'asu Li, you gave it to Li, you gave it to Hashem. It says nit maspik. What does it mean, give them? It's not, you don't just give it, but you give it with the kavanah. It says nit maspik. It is not sufficient, that which you actually give it to Hegdish. But you must designate it that this is for Hashem, and your thought is similar. Is in posi v'yichuli Terumah. So in the verse of v'yichuli Terumah, in the beginning of the parsha, in which they took their money and they gave it to Hashem. So not just to give it, but to give it lishmi with the kavanah b'machshavtoi. When they're separating from their money. Magdish Zain Mammon Chulin. We're talking about consecrating money, which is weekly, which is plain money, and making it to Hegdish. Is verstandig, then it's understood. Vavos does darv zain mitakavona lishmi. Why this needs to be with the intention for the sake of Hashem, because you're moving it from Chulin to Hegdish. Mashenkin in Posuk Vosul Migdosh, but in the verse Vosul Migdosh. We're talking about that separation that already became money of consecrated money belonging to Hegdish. It's already in the possession of Hegdish. Was fällt da in der Sheiches zum Ebersten? So what is lacking here in its connection to the Eberster? As man soll noch einmal davon sagen lishmi, that we should say again lishmi. What is lishmi? It's already Hegdish. So what are we doing again lishmi? So what the Rebbe is saying, so basically, because the first li means lishmi, the second li should mean something else. Davke der far. Was Rashi learned that v'yichuli Terumah meant li lishmi. Specifically, because Rashi learns that yichuli Terumah means li lishmi. As though he's showing given the kavanah lishmi, that there was already the intention for Shem Hashem, for Hashem. Is mer mit staber zu sagen, so it's more logical to say, as mit Vasuli Migdosh meint the Torah zu Madgish sein, an anderer too. That was the Torah means something different. As the Asiyah Zozai Mishaliki now, that the Asiyah should be mine. After that now we should say that this Asiyah, what the pasuk means, should be Mishali, because the first Li means Lishmi. Ois Gimel. So now in Ois Gimel, the Rebbe is going to say the second part of the Rashi, that Rashi teaches that Migdosh means base Kedusha. It's very, very difficult. If Rashi just wants to explain that it means, why does he change it to Kedusha? Many other issues that doesn't really fit the way the Mefarshim wanted to explain it. Gimel. Al derech zeh daf men hoben abiyur. Similar, we need an explanation in Siyum Pirush Rashi, in the end of Rashi's commentary, Migdosh Beis Kedusha. Vos bavorn do Rashi? What is Rashi coming to caution here, to tell us the answer here? And favos is mishano mechadish bam vort Migdosh. Why is he change? And what is the novelty? He says osuli Migdosh. Rashi says Beis Kedusha. Loit the Mizrahi, according to the Mizrahi, which the Rebbe quoted before, bring down. According to Rashi, Rashi is cautioning us over here, as Mikdash meint nit Eiza Dover Mekudesh Yiyah, nor Beis Mekudesh. Bais Mekudesh. Says Vasili Mikdash, make something holy. What is the holy? We don't know. We talk a house, make a Sefer Torah. I mean, whatever. Just make something Kodesh. So the Mizrahi learns that what Rashi is trying to tell us, it does mean Osli Migdosh Abayis. The Chiddush is Abayis Mekudesh. Kishem Migdosh says, the quoting the Rabbi Leo Mizrahi, Narbayis Mekudesh, that we want specifically that it should be a house of Mekudesh, not just something Kodesh. Kishem Migdosh B'chol Mokem. Why do you know that? How do we know that? We call Migdosh everywhere. Lo yimotze ki im ala beis hamikudesh. The word Migdosh usually, always, don't find it about anything else saying that you made a Migdosh. Migdosh is a beis hamikdash, and that's why this is what it means here, beis mikudesh. This is the way Rabbi Leo Mizrahi, the Mizrahi, learns what Rashi is coming to Kiddush. But the Rebbe says, we need to look at very much. I mean, this is a difficult explanation. Der Wort Migdosh steht schon früher in Parshas B'Shalach. The word Migdosh already is written earlier in the portion of B'Shalach. It says, Migdosh Hashem koinenu yodecha. So it says Migdosh, doesn't say base Migdosh, it just says Migdosh Hashem koinenu yodecha. Is oib by Migdosh. If when it says Migdosh, darf ois getayt werden, we need to interpret. Ados main by Kedusha, that it means a house of Kedusha. But as Rashi darf mefarer sein dort in Parshas B'Shalach, Rashi should have explained it over there in the portion of B'Shalach. Aber not only does Rashi not explain it there, Adrabe, nit nor bavoren tes nit Rashi dort. Not only does Rashi not write Migdosh Beis Kedusha, as I say, nor from Loshen Rashi dort is muchach, but from Rashi's language over there in the Rashi and the Pasuk, it's evident as a nemt on as a dover moving post as Migdosh is Beis Hamikdash. That it means the Beis Hamikdash. When it says Migdosh at night, that it means Beis Hamikdash. So it means that if it says Migdosh, that in of itself means the Beis Hamikdash. So why does Rashi have to explain it over here? As the Rebbe actually explains in the Order, that can't say because it says Machal Shiftacha, because over here it also says V'shachanti. But nevertheless, the problem is, why does Rashi find it necessary over here to interpret what he means, what the pasuk means by Migdash, that it means a bayis and not something else? And then why does Rashi actually change from the word Migdosh to Mekudosh? If all what Rashi is trying to tell us that it's a bayis, so you should say Beis HaMikdash. Oich. Der ganze Öfter von Rashi is as Migdosh meant a bayis. If Rashi's entire novelty here, that Migdosh means a home, unit eiza dover mekudesh, not just some other holy matter, but Rashi gedav zogen Beis Hamikdash. Avos is Rashi Mishane, Saif and Loshen HaKosu Alasar. Why does Rashi say both from the language of the Posik, which right here? Usain Fun Loshen HaRogel B'chol Mokum. This is also the normal, usual, every way we call it the base Hamikdash, not base Kedusha. Nicht base Kedusha. Und anstatt Mikdash, sagt Kedusha. And the same thing the Rebbe says, the same issue we have with other Mefarshim. The problem we're going to have is because this has already been written before Mikdash Hashem Koinu Yodecha. If it's necessary, a Pirush Rashi should have said this too. The other Mefarshim who explain, we also doesn't really fit, need to really understand their comment. Rashi could that Rashi is coming to caution here. How can you say you make me a sanctuary? Sanctuary the Eibishter makes. We don't make a sanctuary. Rashi is coming to tell us that you're making a house where the sanctuary will be. So they learn that Rashi is coming to say, you don't make a mikdash, you make a bais kedusha. But the kedusha atzmo mikdash werd doch nit aufgemacht durch it. The kedusha itself, the mikdash, that's not accomplished for us with the yid. No, das kommt von Eibush, that comes from Hashem. Is Rashi mefarish? That's how they learn. As their tzivui is to machen a bais kedusha, that the command is to make a home of kedusha, not kedusha, but a house kedusha. We have the same problem like before, because Rashi should have said it earlier. From Kinis Galil, from Pirush Rashi and now Beparshas B'Shalach is muchach from Rashi's commentary in the portion of B'Shalach. It's evident as is a milsa de pshita. This is something obvious. As Mikdash is the Shem Hamakutzer. The Mikdash is a shortened name from Beis Hamikdash. Unsi is nit natik, that's the shortened version of Beis Hamikdash, and it's not important. The Bavornish as ve'osul li Mikdash mean the Beis Hamikdash. That make for me a Mikdash means make the Kedusha, not the Beis Hamikdash. Unit the Kedusha Shabai. That ve'osul li Mikdash doesn't mean the holiness, but the building of it. Und euch kenal lifizeh, we also have the second question. But Rashi gedarf zogen Beis Hamikdash, und nicht Beis Kedusha. Rashi should have said the Beis Hamikdash, Beis Kedusha. So why is it that Rashi changes to Beis Kedusha? These old things tell us that Rashi is telling us something else. So the Rebbe rejects both the Pirush of the Mizrahi to tell us that it doesn't just mean any Kedusha, or the other interpretation which tells us you can't make Kedusha, that the Eibishter makes that. The word Kedusha, Mikdash says already before, Rashi assumes that it means a Beis HaMikdash. So here would be the Beis HaMikdash also, and that would be obvious, and Rashi wouldn't need to explain that. And also, why would Rashi go ahead and change from the Loshen of, instead of Beis HaMikdash, writing a Beis Kedusha? Nois Talid, the Rebbe explains the Pshat in the Rashi. So, the Rebbe explains that the whole issue Rashi is confronted here is, why do we call this Mikdash when we're really talking about the Mishkan? The Rebbe will show that, according to Rashi, Mikdash and Mishkan are two separate matters. And why would the Torah call it Mikdash? And that's what Rashi is actually saying, that it's, in this case, it's not Beis HaMikdash, but Asuli Bayis Kedusha. It's an adjective. It's gonna create a house of holiness, basically. It's not, and a house of holiness can apply to the Mishkan as well. That's how Rashi interprets it, because otherwise we don't understand why would it be called Asuli Mikdash when the usual all the time, and the pasuk further calls it Mishkan. And then further, that explains it by Kedusha, why we could say Mikdash, because we're not talking about the Beis HaMikdash, we're talking a Bais of Kedusha. But why does the Torah Taki call it? And that's why it's explained, because it says va'osu li, that it has to be made lishmi, and that's another step in the upgrading of the attributions. First, you make it li, which means it takes it out from chulin to kedusha, and then the Torah says va'osu li migdosh, to make it into holier, to make it into the actual part of the Beis Hamikdash, not just mammon that's holy, but the actual kedusha itself, as we'll explain. Let's just look inside. Dala, the beer, because the explanation of this is the shaila ikris, was Rashi kommt verantworten. The main question that Rashi is coming to answer, Bipirusha in his commentary, is Vi pas do der Loshen v'osul li migdosh. How does it fit here, the language, make a migdosh? The nomen migdosh batzitzich zum Beis HaMikdosh Yerushalayim. The name migdosh is references the Beis HaMikdosh in Yerushalayim. That's called the Beis HaMikdosh. And here we're talking about the midbar, the Mishkan. Ubelshena Kosov Hanal Beparshas B'Shalach, and the pasuk that the Rebbe quoted before, where it says Migdosh, it says Tivi Eimei Goimer Bahar Nachaloscha. You will bring him to the mountain of your inheritance, which is the Beis Hamikdash, on the mountain, on the Har Habayis. Umamshich Dort, the pasuk continues to bring him to the mountain. Migdosh Hashem Koirenu Yudecha. So the Migdosh that Hashem prepared, that Hashem's hands has made, is talking about the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim. Here we're dealing with making the Mishkan and the Midbar, which is called by the pasuk. It's called Mishkan. As it's immediately written in the following verse, it says the Mishkan. So here too should say Mishkan. So what is it? Why does it say Vasuli Migdosh? Migdosh is the Beis Hamikdash, not the Mishkan. So why does it say Vasuli Migdosh and not Vasuli Mishkan? We're talking about what they built in the desert. It was a Mishkan. Now the Rebbe brings down the answer of the Rechaim. The Rechaim says like this: that the first part of the pasuk Vasuli Migdosh talks about the generally Migdosh, Mishkan, all the Beis Hamikdash. And then it starts detailing about the Mishkan. But the Rebbe proves from the Rashi doesn't learn like that. Rashi learns that the V'osuli Migdosh is the part of the Mishkan that the Pasuk says. The Migdosh is Betavnis. This is the Mishkan. Why is this called Migdosh? So the Rebbe brings down the Eira Chaim answers, as V'osuli Migdosh is a mitzvahs eser kalelis. The make for me a sanctuary, that's a general including mitzvahs asay. Kol hazmanim, this refers to old times. Bein b'midbar, bein b'knesos from the Oretz, whether it was in the desert or when they entered into Eretz Yisrael. So that's the first statement, v'osuli migdosh. Und noch zogt on der Posik, and then according to the Rechaim, the Posik says, from Prat, Hanasa b'midbar, talks to you about the specific, the detail, that building that was built in the desert, sheyasem mishkan kiseder amur, that he should make the mishkan in the order that the pasuk says in the parsha, as the pasuk in the parsha. So, according to the Rechaim, it wouldn't be a question why does it call it vasuli migdosh, because this migdosh is a general statement for the mishkan and the migdosh. But the Rebbe says no. According to Rashi, vasuli migdosh is talking specifically about the mishkan. Rashi is aber shoylel dem pirush. Rashi rejects the interpretation of the Rechaim, as you see, because if the verter in the pasuk shel acher on the words in the following verse, it says, Shem says tabnis hamishkon kichoil asher animado ischa as tabnis hamishkon gomer, like I am showing you the image of the mishkan. Is Rashi mefarish? Rashi explains that this pasuk is that this pasuk, when it talks about the specific images and the form that the vessels of the Mishkan and all the Mishkan, the structure, is connected to the pasuk before Himenu, pasuk before say a Migdosh, like And the pasuk here continues. The mikdash should be like a nimara isach. So you see clearly Rashi connects the Vasuli Mikdash to the structure that they were building in the Mishkan in the desert, the Mizembuvan. So from this is understood as Vasuli Mikdash. When it says make food the Mikdash, what are we talking about the Mishkan here? As Tavnis HaMishkan, like I'm showing you the image of the Mishkan. One continuation is Ein, there's Albert Tzibur. It's one and the same command. So it's not like the Rabbi Chaim says Vasily Migdash is talking about generally, and then we're talking about the Mishkan. Rashi learns that this is the Asuli Migdash, like the image, like the Mishkan. This is what we're talking about here. But furthermore, the Rebbe says, Rashi teaches V'chein Tasu you should do. This is talking about the future. Nochmer, Loit dem Pirush Rashi, according to this Rashi, is in dem Tzivui beferish nit nichlal dem Migdash. In the command v'osuli Migdash, we are not specifically not including the Migdash in this command. The Deirus for the generation. Vorum der Tzivui do is to machona Migdash. This command here is to make a Migdash for the Mishkan. Kechoy lasher nimara ischo establis ha-Mishkan. As I show you, that specific what is told you over here, that's the Mikdash you should make now. Und der Beis HaMikdash is nit kitabnis HaMishkan. The Beis HaMikdash is taken not like the image of the Mishkan. This is the Tabnis HaMishkan we should make. Because the far is Rashi Medayik. That's what Rashi is specifically says that as the Tzivui Shebesiyum HaKosuv, the command in the end of the pasuk, then it says V'chein Tasu, L'doidus. So you shall do L'doidus. So what is should be L'doidus? We're not talking about the Tabnis HaMishkan. That's not done. But Tzitzich Davke Nor zu di Klei HaMishkan. That is only referencing the vessels of the Mishkan. Azei darfen gemacht werden Kitabnis Elu. They need to make like this image of a Nitzu Mishkan Asa, but not the Mishkan itself. So you see that Rashi learns that V'chein Tasu is only for the Kelim, and the Tabnis HaMishkan, the actual structure was only Vasuli Migdash. So we have an issue. So why does the Torah call it Migdash? Since Rashi learns Asuli Migdash is talking specifically about the Mishkan, so why does the pasuk refer to it Asuli Migdash, not Vasuli Mishkan? In order to answer this question above, why is here the Mishkan referred to Migdash? Is Rashi mefarish as Migdash in them pasuk? So Rashi, what is Migdash in this verse? Main bayis kedusha, a house of holiness. The word Migdash is the nit als shem dover. This is not a noun saying mekutzer from bayis hamigdash. Instead of saying Beis Hamikdash, here it's Migdash, that this is a shorter version of the Beis Hamikdash. Not als Obteijvort, but the Migdash means the translation of the word here, Shem HaToya Rutchuna Fanazal, the description and the characteristic of the item. It's an item, not an object which is Beis Hamikdash, but an item that has Kedusha. It is a house of holiness, not a weekday house. But those pasta from Mishkan Migdash, that fits on the Mishkan, just like of the Migdash. If you talk about an entity like Beis Hamikdash, then why would this Mishkan is one entity, Mishkan is another entity? But here the word Kedusha, the Migdash is not an entity of a Beis Hamikdash. We're talking a house that contains in it holiness. As far as holiness goes, Mishkan and Migdash, they can both be holiness. Migdash meant a zach. It means an item. In this case, a bayis. Was hot in zich or there is to live, which either it contains in it or is because Kedusha. Was der Far nutzt men dem Wort euch von Mishkan. That's why we use the name also of the Mishkan, because the Mishkan contains Kedusha also. The signal Ache, using a different style. Der Chidush von Rashi is nit in word bais. Rashi's novelty is not explaining to you we're talking about a house and not something else. Nor in word kedusha. Rashi is trying to tell us what the word kedusha. As migdosh do is nit Hashem dover. It's not the name of an item, bekutzer from Beis Hamikdash, but rather here also the migdosh means make a place where there will be holiness in there to translate the idea of Mikdash as a place of holiness. So why does Rashi have to say base? When Rashi says Kedusha, why does Rashi say base Kedusha? Because the bottom line is, it is a bias. That's undos was Rashi zog base Kedusha. Af al pias from word Mikdash gufa lipirushe haposhut, even though that just the word Mikdash itself, in the simple meaning, is nitokin raya. We don't have evidence as retzich wegen abayis unit eze mekudesh or not some mekudesh. The Chaim, the Mizrahi argued earlier that it says Mikdash, it doesn't say bayis. And Rashi, the Rebbe is saying Rashi is not coming to tell you that it's a bayis, not just anything else. So we don't know. Rashi is just tying something that has holiness in it. So why does Rashi say bayis? Is Valbepoil is the Dovashel Kedusha, but didn't the Don bayis, because in actuality it was a home. That's why Rashi is telling what was the Kedusha. How do we know? Verstandig von Hemshech Hatzivu, as the understood from the continuation of the command, V'osuli Migdosh, said Kechol Gomer Tabnis HaMishkan, like the image of the Mishkan. So we're building. So it is going to be a bayis. I mean, even though the word Kedusha doesn't necessitate that it's a bayis, could be any Kedusha, like the Rabbi Chaim argues, but Rashi is just telling you the facts is that it was a bayis. Was lois Rashi is thus als ein Hemshechel. Rashi said this is one, Bosuli Migdash Kitavnis HaMishkan. Was from them Weisman. So from this continuation, we know as the Dover Shel Kedusha, that what is the item of Kedusha you need to make, and that's those wegen abayis we're discussing here, abayis. Because that is what actually happened. But main point that Rashi wants to tell you is that the word Kedusha is not Mikdash, it is a place of holiness where there's holiness, and that's why we're fitting for the Mishkan. And the fact is that it's going to take place in abayis. So that only tells us, the Rebbe says in Oisei, why it could say Mikdash, and the Mikdash could apply also to the Mishkan. But it doesn't explain why the Pasuk Taki uses the word Mikdash. It could use, why does it have to say a place for Kedusha? Why don't you use the normal word for the Mishkan, also the Mishkan? That's why Rashi explains that Li Lishmi, because this gives us the reason that because you have to make this Lishmi an elevated Kedusha, that's why the Pasuk says also Li Migdosh, because we're making a higher Kedusha. Hey, Abadoshi noch nit maspik. This is not yet sufficient. Warum der Pirush Hanal verantwortet nor, the above interpretation only answers as Migdosh ken zir batzim to Mishkan. That Migdosh can refer to the Mishkan. As bleibt aber nit musbar, but we still don't understand. Farvos zokto der Posik. Yes, it could imply that Vazok the Posik Loshen Migdosh. Why does it say Loshen Migdosh? Only it's need them Loshen Arogel, but Parshas Elo. Why doesn't it use the common, the usual language in these portions of Osuli Mishkan? So you say that it means Kedusha, that there's holiness. It doesn't mean the Beis HaMikdash, but it means holiness, which includes the Mishkan. But why you not say Osuli Mishkan Beferish? The Faris Rashi Magdim then Pirush Oiva Osuli Osuli Shmi. Rashi therefore introduces the explanation of Osuli Osuli Shmi. As der Tzivu in dem Posik is nit nor of der Asiya Bechlal, that the command in this verse is not just that you have to do it, nor as the Asiya Mudzain mit der Kavona Lishmi. You need to have the intention of the Shmi. So since the Torah is saying specially, it has to say the word Migdash, not just doing it. It has to be Lishmi. Und could say zu Masber sein den Din von V'osuli Shmi, and in order for the Pasuk to explain the halacha, making for me also lishmi, what does it mean? Lishmi is the posuk medayik also lemigdash. Then you know what you're making it for Hashem, that you're making it a migdash. If you would just say also mishkan, we wouldn't know what is vasuli. Why are you making a mishkan? But because vasuli migdash, you're adding kedusha. That's why that is what you have to make when you build that additional kedusha, in addition to being Mois Hegdish, to make it into a structure of Kedusha, as the Rebbe will explain. There's more in there. There's explanation. In the Pirush, also Lishmi, when we say that make it for my name, is Ka'amur Le'il, so if Siv Beis, I said before earlier, and the Siv Beis, Nit Klatik, it's not smooth. Bibald, as the Terumah Yishen Gevorim Mamen Hegdish, since this Terumah already became money of a Hegdish. The Afrosha Lifnei is given Lishmi. You separated already before for Hegdish when you said V'yikhu li Truma, so you separated for Lishmi. Favozolmen by the Rasiyas HaMishkan. So why is it necessary when you're making the Mishkan? Darfun Habun noch Amol HaKavon Lishmi. You need again intention Lishmi. If them zog der Posik, that's what the Posik says. V'osu li Migdash. What you're doing here is, you're not Jews, you're making a Migdash. What's main Kipirush Rashi? Which means, as Rashi explains, V'osu lishmi bayis Kedusha, you make for me a home of holiness. Dos vos by V'osu darv zayna mit kavonim yuchedes lishmi. The reason why do we need this specific intention lishmi, meintes a kavona neisefes bayis Kedusha. It means a home of holiness. Nit not by shel kedusha, not only a home of kedusha, a bayis in v'chel noch azach kedusha, which means there's a home, and in the home there's something else. There's kedusha in the home, so the home and the kedusha are different. Nor as the bayis gufa is kedusha, kedusha. The hayis itself is a holy home. She's a heilig bayis. It's a holy home. It's not a home that contains holiness, but the home itself becomes holy. Why we're saying Kedosha, not Bayis Kodesh? So the Rebbe says that it's in the Bayis is Lashon Nekeva too, so it's okay. Says Kasha nit, but Rashi is Kedosha Lashon Nekeva. That's not a question. Why Rashi uses the feminine language? What make you think as Bayis is euch Meshamesh b'loshen nekeva, because we find that bayis can be used also in the feminine. Therefore, is move on. So from this we understand as asiyas hamishkan tut oif ashinu ikri. When you built the mishkan, you made a change, a main change in the dvorim mit welchem od gemacht der mishkan, in those items with which you made the mishkan. They seinen niskadish geworden. They became sanctified. Geworden atel von the Bayis Kedusha. They became a part of the holy house. These items that you actually built. First, you got the money. You collected the money for that. But here, when you turned it into the house, you made that house. You made those items into Kedusha, into Kodesh. Before they were actually used for the structure of the Mishkan, Izer Kedusha given, their sanctity was Machmas them was Ezain and Mammon Hegdish, because they are monetary of Hegdish. Aber durch Va'osuli Migdash, when they made a Migdash, werden sie niskadish, nicht nur weil sie belongen zu Hegdish. It's not that they became sanctified because they belong to Hegdish. Or their meat vazei gufa werden genutzt und werden atil von Bayis Kedusha. But the fact that they themselves are used, and they become a part of this Bayis of Kedusha. So that's the additional. Bibald as DRC is going to manaye hechere kedusha. Since this making causes a new higher kedusha in the dvarim shel trumas hamishkon, in the items of the separation of the mishkan, that first they were separated as monetary, and now they become part of the actual kedusha. That's why this doing needs the additional intention that it needs to be lishmi. That's the additional lishmi because it's a newer kedusha. Also li mikdash because you're making a higher kedusha. So, so the Rebbe said, based on this, we can say the fact that we're saying that there's two levels of kedusha. So we can say that this also makes a difference in halacha. Says nit genug as the kavana zol zayin stam lishmi. It's not sufficient that the intention should be just generally lishmi, because that would be limiting. That's the chatchila when you take it from kodesh, from chol to kodesh, from weekly and bring it to. But here, not as darv zayin l'shem kedushas hamishkan. You have to make it for the sanctity in the mishkan, for this elevated level that you're bringing it up. So them bayis kedusha, the holy house that you make, the spezielle hechere kedusha was kum dur dem also. That's the special higher kedusha that comes through what they did. Also, they made it li, and they made it into those dvarim gashmi, into part of the Beis Hamikdash. Based on the above, we can explain another item in Pirush Rashi. In the word Terumah, we say v'yichuli Terumah. Terumah is an zwei Pirushim. There are two interpretations. Aleph Pirush Targum. The Targum translated Ifrashusa, that is separation. Terumah Beis Meloshin Harama v'Hagbah, meaning to raise it up and to lift it and to raise it. Rashi b'Pirusha ala Torah is Mefarish ki Pirusha Targum. Rashi in his commentary of the Torah explains it like the Targum. Terumah hafrosha, separation. We can explain the reason why Rashi says that it is separation, because according to Rashi, it was just Terumah. It wasn't yet the highest level. The Rebbe explains. By first introducing the difference between Hafrosha and Harama. Hafrosha meant as the Zach is blois abgeschädigt geworden von andere Sachen. Hafrosha only means that the item has been separated from other things. Das heißt, b'mhusa is sie verblieben in demselben Geder wie die andere Sachen. In its essence, it remained, it still defined the same boundaries as the other things. It's just separate. The Chelek is not the only difference. There's no different the item, but an inyan f'shina mokom l'shus. It only changed place. You separate it from one place to the other. Shas mizokt aber harama. When you say raised, vaistes of f'shina mahus, that points to a change in its essence. Zach is aufgehoben geworden. This matter was raised. She is in a hecheren ort madrege. She's in a higher place, higher step. Azoi azot nit kein shayches mit dem Ort und Meile von den Sachen zwischen welches ist früher gewesen. It has no connection to that place and the advantage with those items that it was before. It's in a different category now. It's not just in a different space, but it's in an elevated space, and it has no connection to its previous state. Und later Rashi does der Teuchen achilik zwischen die zwei Psukim. According to Rashi, this is the difference, the content difference between the two verses. V'yichul li Terumah and v'asu li migdash. V'yichul li Terumah just means to separate. The inyan for v'yichul li Terumah, take Terumah. Der geben moino far Terumah samishkan, to give the money for the Terumah samishkan is blois begeder hafrosha. That's just defined in the boundaries of Afrasha. You separated it. That because it still remained, although now it became money that belongs to Hekdesh, is aber der Yesoid, the Geder HaKedusha, mitzadem shin reshus. But the basis and the definition of the Kedusha is because it changed places. That it changed from the domain of private, from an individual, to the ordinary, to the domain of holiness. The fact is the Kedusha blows al derech haninya shel hafrosha. That's why this Kedusha is only similar to separation. She's not abgeschädigt geworden von der anderen Sachen. It was just separated from the other items. Mashen kein durch v'osul limigdosh, v'osul limigdosh, those was benimmt in nidvas hamishkan. Man macht say for a tail from the migdosh, that you take them, you make them a part of the migdosh. Das tut in say, das tut in say auf aharoma. That accomplishes them a raising. They werden aufgehoben, they're being raised in a hecher kedusha, in a higher holiness. Okay, it's hecher was a free dikamatzav, it's higher than the previous situation. So the osuli, the yichuli truma is just a separation of place. Yes, it becomes holy because it's in the domain of holiness. But the osuli migdash is in a higher level. It comes in a level of kedusha higher than before. Zayin the eroder fun betoichom. What's the lesson for us? Shchanti b'soichom. Also, the mishchanti b'soichom. So, what is the b'soichom? B'soichom b'avedus kol echad v'echad. Inside and in the service of each one of them. Yeder einer darf machen für sein eigenem Bayis. Each one needs to make from his own house a mishkan. Mikdash lo yizbarach. A mishkan and a mikdash lo yizbarach. The lashon haposuk, as the language in the posuk, va'osuli mikdash shechanti b'soichom. V'amr Razal, our sages blessed memory, tell us b'toichei lei nemar ela b'toichom, within them shekol echad echad miYisrael tzorich lasis b'chenes mishkan b'nafshe chulu. Each one and one needs to make a level of a mishkan in his soul. And in them faran tzvei shlovim ba'avedah, so it consists in this two steps and two services. One is v'yichul li terumah hafrosha, separate, and then noch v'osu lemigdash harama. So Malamesh, first of all, kum di avodah von hafrosha, comes the work of separation. I darf abschäden sein Bayis from the Heiser Arumen. You must make your house different. Separate your house from the houses that surround you. As in sein Bayis, so sein can't think that in his home you should be able to tell, as that is anders, that is different, that it's a different home. You actually do physical matters just like other homes. But by im in Stub, but in his house, but they're done in your home, they're done with another purpose, another goal, or another intention. Therefore, the sake of the heaven. That's why your home is different. The maisim seine noch als masecha. These actions are still masecha in yonechayel, their weekly matters. But they're done for the sake of shemayim. Was their mitzvah is a mufresh umuvdal from the divrei from andere. That way, they are separated and distinct from the weekday matters of the others. The tachlis is aber, the purpose, the goal is, however, as a zovern ha'arome, to be raised, osuli midosh, to make it holy. The stub darf aufgehoben werden, the house needs to be raised. Durch dem, was man verwandelt sie in a midosh, by turning it into a sanctuary. She's talking in yonechel in the bayis. There's no weekday stuff in the house. There's no weekday matters in the house. But at his bayis kedosha, it's a holy home. A mikdash leizbarach, a sanctuary for him blessed. Them, through this was their bayis v'chol ashaboy v'durginumen, the house and everything in it is penetrated. It neir mitzvah v'torah with the lamp of mitzvahs and the light of Torah. Filled sich nit kein choil in the bayis. You don't feel any choil. It's a bayis kedosha. Bechlal, jeder prat from the bayis is in yone. And every detail of the house, what does it become? The mitzvahs werden durch him getan, the mitzvahs that are done through that. Durch dem, was jeder Yid macht sein Bayis, a Mikdash leizbarach, through every Yid making his home into a Mikdash, it does the Achana Kreva, that is the preparation, the population that very soon, from Binyan Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi to the building of the third Beis Hamikdash, the Mikdash Adnai Koinenu Yodecha, the Mikdash Adnai Yodecha, we were discussing in the Shira that the sanctuary where Hashem creates it, we made it, mamish speedily in our days. This is Mesiches Shabbos Pashas Terumah Tovshin Daled Mem.